could this be the worst Game Master screen that has been created for a role-playing game? Well, I don't know if it's quite that bad, but I've been very disappointed with it, and I believe this was the first Game Master screen that I got, or Dungeon Master screen, because it is for Dungeons and Dragons, and this was for the 5th edition. Now, I completely skipped 4th edition. I don't know anything about 4th edition. I'd been playing 2nd edition and 3rd edition, skipped 4th edition, wasn't gaming at the time, and then got back into it with 5th edition, and so one of the things, obviously, that you go and get is a Game Master screen. And so I was excited about the Game Master screen for this because I remembered the AD&D Dungeon Master screen that I had, which was so fantastic, and I wanted a reference like that for 5th edition. And so I went and got this pretty much as soon as it came out, and I was completely disappointed with it. So I want to compare and contrast this with what was going on with the AD&D screen that I showed. So first of all, the improvement that I like is that this is landscape. So it seems like all modern Game Master screens do go to the landscape layout, which does make it easier for the Game Master to see the players and the players to see the Game Master. And so I completely approve of that change. I am a fan of the lower landscape layout screens. And this one's a quad fold right here. And then you can see, first of all, that they went the complete artistic route with it. This is the player side of the screen. Now, of course, I'm not completely against that at all, because I do think that it helps for immersion at the table. I like having art at the table that facilitates the game that's being played and invokes the feel of the world that's being played in. So this is kind of your basic Dungeons and Dragons fantasy on this side of the screen, which is fine, I think, for the players, but it does mean that you immediately gave up a lot of screen real estate. So the players are not going to be able to use this as a play aid during the game like they were able to use that AD&D screen, because this is just for the Game Master. Okay, so what's on the inside? Well, we said that we were judging Game Master screens basically by how well they facilitate playing the game. Are they able to cut down on the reference to the books? Are they bringing the information right to you at your fingertips? And so when I opened this up, well, first of all, we do notice that it's much more artistic, right? The interior, which I think is good. I mean, that's definitely a modern improvement, that the interior looks a lot better than, for instance, that AD&D screen that I liked so much, even though it was very functional. So we've got some art for the Game Master, but to me, I don't really think that adds a whole lot. I'm interested in the data that it's bringing to the Game Master. And so this page right over here seemed basically pretty useless to me, because it's all about NPC characteristics. Look at this. We've got NPC characteristics, and it's like a roll of a D20, like friendly, dim-witted, curious, clumsy, that kind of thing. NPC ideals, NPC bonds, NPC flaws. To me, a lot of people don't really use those a lot in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons anyway for the Game Master, for the actual player characters. So why having a whole bunch of information here for them for the NPCs doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So D10, D20 tables for, ideals, glory, special place, keepsake, foolhardy, brave. I mean, I've never used that during a game, and I haven't ever needed to use something like that during the game. NPC name generator. That one, even though I think it's still kind of useless, I could probably see that one being the most useful of anything over here. We've got a lot of space that's just left completely blank, because, or as far as data goes, because it's got this art in it. So NPC name generator over here. It's this section right here that is basically the meat of what it's trying to provide you. And I do like the conditions reference. So this part is good, because there's a lot of times when a condition comes up, that is information in 5th edition that I would want to have at my fingertips as the Game Master. So blinded, charmed, deafened, grappled, petrified, stunned, blah, blah, blah. That's good information right there. It takes up a lot of space because we've also got this artistic reference on each side of those, which probably the Game Master doesn't need, because the Game Master just needs to look up blinded. I don't really need the picture of a dwarf stumbling around with a blindfold on as the Game Master in order to facilitate my gameplay. We've got exhaustion here as one of the conditions in the different levels as well. So that's good information. It just takes up a lot more space on this screen than it should. I'd need this information, but I want it to take up less space and get me more data in here. This is good. Setting a DC, cover, obscured areas, light sources, and skills and abilities. So also good information here, taking up a lot of space, a lot of empty space right here. And then over here, we move on to travel pace. Okay, that's something the Game Master would need. Encounter distance. Okay, I like that. Damage by level and severity. But then here, I don't think we really need these very much. Something happens. Something happens, some kind of like random something that can happen. And then quick finds for finding a letter, a map, a body, piece of artwork. That's pretty useless to me. And then we also have a whole lot of space right here that was put for art that could also be data. And then look at these pictures of the dice down here. There's a lot of space that went unused here, and I don't really understand why. I don't know what they were thinking when they created this screen. To me, really, this section right here is the good information that we have, and it could probably take up half that space. But do you know what it was that really set me off on thinking that this is a terrible Game Master screen? Especially for Dungeons & Dragons, do you see what's not here? Kind of difficult to see things that are not here, but what's obvious that's not here? Weapons and armor and equipment. I mean, weapons and armor, like, do I need to have the name generator and NPC flaws, or do I need to have a table of weapons and their damages? The first time I noticed that was like, what is going on with this Game Master screen was when I was running with it, game with it, and I needed to know, like, okay, wait, how much damage does a mace do, or a longsword do, or something like that? And it's not on this screen? How can you make a Dungeons & Dragons Game Master screen and not include a table of weapons damage? I mean, that's like the most essential reference, as far as I'm concerned, for speeding up gameplay. Oh, he's got this kind of weapon. Oh, how much damage does it do? Let me reference that on the table. That should be very quick. Likewise with armor. Armor should be on this table. What type of armor are they wearing? Oh, here is your AC for that. And then I loved from the other table all of the other equipment as well. Here's the equipment, how much it costs, how much it weighs, that kind of stuff. All that is stuff that you would have to go back to the game for. How do you swim? How do you climb? How do you do all these different things that I'm constantly referencing in my player's handbook? I'm not a big fan of how the player's handbook itself is laid out anyway, because I've had to come in here and put different tags in here, and then I've just been okay with highlighting different things and writing different notes in here as I've had to look things up. Things are not where I would expect them to be, and then I will write in a note. But so things that I've needed to reference is like how to do an ability check. Here's your passive check information. That should be on the screen. Working together, that should be on the screen. Resting, exactly what happens during a short and long rest, that should be on the screen. Combat actions, that should be on the screen. Reactions, I highlighted something over here that I thought was important. So that should be on the screen. And now I did look up condition modifiers. I had that flagged, so at least they put conditions on here. So there are a bunch of different things that I think need to be referenced that just did not show up on this screen. And I hate that, because I often do feel that that's because the Game Master screen becomes a little bit of an afterthought in different systems, and I kind of feel like it was an afterthought here, because what is it that people buy, especially for Dungeons & Dragons? They're kind of accustomed to getting a player's handbook, a Dungeon Master's guide, a book of monsters, and then a Game Master screen as well. But I don't think that a lot of thought was put into this Game Master screen as far as being a functional play aid. So as far as I'm concerned, I was very disappointed with this this screen. It does hide your notes, and it does have some art for the players, but as far as being functional for the Game Master, I thought it was pretty terrible. And in fact, because this screen was so terrible, that's what inspired me to say, okay, fine, I'm just going to make my own Game Master screen. And so I made my own 5th edition Game Master screen that I thought had all of the reference information that should have been in this one and that Wizards of the Coast should have put out. So I created one and put it out there, and we will look at that in another video. But until then, happy gaming.